Good morning, self-care for performers. We're here for another day of embodiment. It's day 9. Oh my gosh, we're almost to day 10. We're almost like a third done. It's so exciting. I'm so curious, have any of you been doing all of the days? If so, what's that like for you to witness and watch? And are you doing your own practice? And if so, what does that feel like for you? How are you shifting, evolving? What are you noticing about yourself? Or what are you noticing about my patterns? Are there any of my patterns that are mirrored in your own? Are there any of yours that you see represented in an interesting way, in that kind of way that we're humans mirror each other, and also at the same time, we're also unique? So they've started removing the floorboards from my hallways yesterday because they're going to paint the hallways. And today I don't know what time they're going to start. I'm hoping that we finish up before that begins, but we'll see how this goes. We're going to work out of the same book today, Essential Art Therapy Exercises. And yesterday I just pulled to a page, and I'm kind of feeling that today too. Ooh, what about this one? What's your story is the name of the exercise, page 68. Benefits. Artists in processing traumatic, artists it assists in processing traumatic experiences and improves emotional regulation, self-reflection, and self-observation skills. Exercise time, about an hour, and materials, computer, PowerPoint software, images from the internet. So I would love to know if you do this kind of practice. I'm going to do it again the embodied way today because this is a daily embodiment challenge that I've set for myself. So the description of this one goes, the exercise of telling your story. Let me just check my microphone because yesterday's we didn't connect and the audio was not great. Okay. It looks like we're good. Looks like we're connected in. Okay. The exercise of telling your story allows you to review your traumatic event and process the emotions involved in that event. The process of reviewing the work allows you to self-reflect and integrate the trauma into your memory. In working through this self-reflection, be sure to identify with being a survivor. Being able to build your story and watch it unfold shows that you are a survivor. So knowing that we've survived the traumatic event, the trauma, the thing that we've experienced as too much, too soon, too fast, the thing that we've had to give up part of who we truly are in order to be there for, and have had a hard time coming out of our dysregulated nervous system state, right? These are the traumas. This is the way our body, the word trauma, that's how we use it these days, right? To really talk about the understanding that it's something that happens in your body as a result of what happened to you or didn't happen. Steps. Start with a blank PowerPoint slide. On slide 1, start to write your story. Begin at the time before your trauma. Feel free to make it a few paragraphs or several bullet points. Look through personal images in the internet to find an image that matches your story before your trauma, and add it to this slide. If you don't have space on slide 1, place the image on slide 2. On a new blank slide, start a new paragraph. This time, write about the trauma. Again, look at images and find an image to match your story at that time. Add it to the presentation. Start a new blank slide and write your story of now What about now distinguishes you from your past? Look through images to find an image to match your current story and add it to your presentation. Once you've finished your work, watch your story in slideshow mode. So we have like a past, like a prior to trauma representation of the trauma. And then the now, I have survived the trauma, and not a future I will have survived the trauma, but I now have survived the trauma. So this, from my understanding of the trauma research I've done, coupled with this practice, this exercise, helicopter. Let's say that again. So what I understand from my research I've done with trauma, coupled with this exercise and how it's laying out, it's really important to understand that whatever it was that we register as traumatic is in the past, and that we have survived it, that there is a difference between our current experience and what the traumatic experience was. And this is something I've had a really hard time with, is because a lot of what I find traumatic is like the state of the world, the way people's patterns play out, the way things are right now is something that has felt really hard for me, the here and the now of like the last couple of years. And this has been a challenging time for everybody with the pandemic and all of the social unrest and all of the really just disruptive and disturbing news cycles that have always also been present in my interpersonal life, and a lot of like just big health problems as well on my family's side. It's been a lot. So in some ways, I'm aware that for me today, I don't know what your trauma is going to be that you practice into, but for me, I'm aware that a large portion of like what feels like I'm having a hard time recovering from, it doesn't feel like it's past. And I want it to feel like it's past, but it feels like a question of, is this the ever presence of how things are? And there's a book, Viktor Frankl's The Man's Search for Meaning, I think it's called. Viktor Frankl is a Holocaust survivor, and he writes in this book about his experience and how when you're in the midst of a lot of just really awful, terrible things, that you start to like numb to the horrors, and they're normalized in your life. And I had to put the book down. I haven't actually finished it, so I'm not sure through all of it, but I do, from what I understand from others who've read the book and what I think I've heard about it, is that it seems that there's this awareness that Viktor Frankl has, that after you get through something really horrific or really something that changes you in a profound way because of what you've lived through, that you have an opportunity to have some sort of meaning making. And even as you're living through it, there's an opportunity to live for something, whatever that might be. And this isn't totally from the book. This is me sort of like spinning off, because like I said, I haven't read the whole thing, but like from my ideas about what I think I've heard people, how they've been impacted by it, and also just where I'm at and what I'm sourcing through with my own relationship to how do I move forward when the threat hasn't passed? How do you survive during the traumatic experience, which for some of us is just life? when you have a lot of sensitivities. And so I think in some ways you have to remove yourself from what feels like too much, too soon, too fast, and what feels like you have to erase who you are in order to show up into. So you have to start there, right? And I'd like to come into this exercise, this particular practice, as though, what if right now, what if I have done that? Can I see this moment, however much I'm able to sustain that or not? But for this moment in this practice for today, can I experience myself as having survived a lot of hardship, having survived not being able to figure out a healthy, sustainable way to make a living in the world? And is there a way that I can allow myself to be seen and to be willing to see through embodiment, through this practice that I love so dearly, this sort of creative fluency, energetic channeling? It's like soul intimacy. It's like I needed to work backwards. I needed to find the, oh, what have I survived? Like, can I imagine that there is a survivor experience? So I'm gonna utilize I have plenty of content that I could draw from and plenty of things that I could qualify as like my traumatic event. And so maybe I'll return to this practice on my own and do this multiple times for different experiences. And that might be something valuable for you as well, depending on how you relate to your past and your present, and how your body understands or doesn't understand safety. So I'm going to start with the before, right? So what was that? On slide 1, start to write your story. Begin at the time before your trauma. Feel free to make it a few paragraphs or several bullet points. And then look through images on the internet and find an image that matches your story before the trauma. So I am now my story before this trauma. I am now my story before the trauma. This trauma made it present. The trauma, as it's written in the book, feels like, okay, it's before the trauma. The trauma isn't here with us. It's the trauma. And I feel like really aware that like I'm walking a story arc right now. So those of you who are creative makers and sharers, like this is a beautiful practice. You can do it as this practice, as an embodiment. You can also utilize this sort of therapeutic model as a way to create your own content, whether that's script writing or choreography or some other form. Maybe a photo series. And now my life before the trauma. I feel like I have this like stability in this left hand, this left arm. I think yesterday I was like, I can't lift it. And I've been doing a lot of it hurts on the left side, but I feel like, oh, and I also was like, I think this is the arm also. I was like, I had a platter and I was just offering things to people. And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore throughout the course of this series. Those are some embodiments I've had with this left side. But for here, I feel like there's this relational awareness. There's this, like, I feel like I have my form and structure. I feel like I can lift my elbow and drop it. I can, there's like mobility here of like, I could dance with it, or I could serve with it, or I could I could catch something with it. Like there's this full accessibility in this left arm. It's just, it moves. It's good. It's part of my body. Like it doesn't feel frozen or broken or used in a way it doesn't want to be used. It's just healthy. That feels good. Okay. So we're gonna let that go. So that was my page one. That was before my trauma. There's a garbage truck outside. I'm gonna pause and wait for it to go. Okay, we're back. So on a new blank page, start a new paragraph, this time write about the trauma. Again, look at images and find an image to match your story at the time. So I am now writing about the trauma. I feel like I'm just, here we go, jumping to the left. And this has been so much of my practice. It's just been falling, dumping to the left side, collapsing. I feel frozen. I feel like I don't have any capacity. I feel like nothing I could have done would have made anything different or better. And so it's an experience of like giving up because there's nothing I can do. I want to cry here, but I also want to stay relational for continuing with this daily practice. And so I'm just going to be aware of that and just note that without needing to make a choice one direction or another. But I'm writing about the trauma. I guess the writing is like my neck hurts, my shoulder hurts. Everything feels like overwhelm on this side. Like it's just too much and I feel so misunderstood. It's like I just see people coming at me and they like are trying to get me hurt because they don't like what I have to say or how I'm showing up or what it is that I thought we were doing together, that I thought we had mutual agreement for and with and in. And there's like a confusion. Did I do something wrong? Did I show up in a way that wasn't healthy? And I'm sure yes, and also the release of it is to honor and recognize that like I'm not perfect, I shouldn't have to be, and there's a baseline decency that I need to be met with. I can't always be meeting people in their pain and their struggles and their projections of me. And at the same time, I'm aware that like you don't have a choice from this place, from this part of the story. From inside the trauma, there's absolutely no access to choice on my end. And I understand that like there are things I could choose, but nothing would help. nothing makes it better. Nothing allows it to go away. Nothing repairs because there's no access. I can't control what someone or others do or don't do, what they do or don't see, how they do or don't understand. Me. And I need to be met with as much consideration as I meet others with, and I'm not. And so I'm tired because I've been doing it all with this left side. This is such a common story that we overwork, we overfunction, we overprovide, we overgive. And we think if we just give more, then we'll be received differently, and we're not. Because we're not giving in ways or in places that can meet us where we need to be met in order to have our baseline sense of safety. And it's like there's this grasping for how do I fill the faulty foundation? How do I fill up the cracks in the floorboards? How do I, can I save the house? Can I save the home? Can I save the thing that we've been building together? And I can't, we can't. It just feels like a metaphor for so many cycles in my life. This feels like the ever present experience of how I keep trying. And I don't want to keep building on faulty ground. I really don't want to. And I'm aware of this space between my heart and my throat that comes up a lot where I feel like I'm not allowed to speak. I'm not allowed to transition from what I feel into the world. That there's this gripping here. Like, you can't tell the truth. You'll hurt people. And I need to like keep saying that you can't tell the truth. You'll hurt people. But I don't want to be with people who I can't tell the truth with. And maybe that does hurt people to hear. And maybe that does hurt the relationship and make it so that we can't continue. Because there's no ground to stand on. There's no way to build.
if everything is falling apart at the basin of it all. Which is why I keep wanting to go back to collapse and just feel held by the earth, by my grief, by the under thing. The place where I know I've found will actually catch me. But I don't want to build here. I don't want to build in my basin of grief. I just want to be held by it. I just want to feel held. I've done so much holding. And now I feel like my arm is the basin of grief and it's here to hold. And I said, I just want to be held. But I've done so much holding and now I feel frozen in this position of, it's like, use me as you're holding, use me as you're holding. Come bring your grief here, I will hold it. And so I'm strangled in it. Like frozen in time here. This feels like a stickiness in my mind where I'm aware this is like my somatic sensation is I don't know how we'll get to the next blank page. I don't know how we'll get to we're past this now. Because this feels like the current space of I can't go past this. There's no past this. So I'm just gonna name that. And then hold it. And let it change. I feel like I want to say I'm now finding myself to the third page. I'm now finding myself through to being a survivor, through to the other side of the trauma, and see what happens here. Felt like I was like gonna go curl it and hide and hold myself, but it was like, no, I'm seeing myself through to the other side. So that felt important, but I want to do it again. Like, it's okay to cover my face and feel ashamed or sad or guilty or grieving or whatever. And also I can take that energy and I can move it. I kind of want to take a hot second, get some Kleenex, come back, and then do the third page. You know, it's so funny. I was putting on makeup before our session today. I was like, I just want to do that today for some reason. And I was going to put mascara. I did put mascara on, but I was like, you might cry. You really sure you want to put mascara on? You might cry today. I had this feeling that something was coming up.
Okay. Take some water, little cleanse. I'm just going to be here in the transition between the second page and the next page, which will be the third completion page. Okay. Start a new blank slide and write your story of now. What about now distinguishes you from the past? Look through images to find an image to match your current story and add it to your presentation. Okay. I am now my story on the other side of this trauma, the trauma. What about now distinguishes me from the past? While I'm standing. My arm on my left side is just down. It's not doing its thing. It's just at my side. So I'm not like trying to offer anything to anybody. Just sort of here. I feel my feet under me. I'm aware of the light outside the window. I want to close my eyes a little bit, but I don't want to keep them closed. But like, I like the feeling. It's like, you know, when you raise the blankets on like a cold night, you get in under the covers and you like pull them up and you just go, Every time I close my eyes, it feels like a, But then they want to open again because the light is nice. I can let my right arm just like hold my heart, hold that spot between the heart and the voice that is feeling like it didn't have a place before, and like let it know it's safe, it's okay. You can find your connection here. The left arm is just like let off the hook. It doesn't have to do anything. Part of me is like, really? You just don't do anything? This is it? After the trauma, you just stand. Just stand. Stand and look. Stand and see the light. Stand and allow the comfort of the dark. And just nurture this part that's been hurt and let the part that was overworked rest. I'm aware I want to just sort of like rotate my shoulder. So I'm mostly feeling it in up here in the ball and socket joint. And be like, see, you're okay. Like you can still move it. It's not overworking, but it is okay. Like nothing's like we're resting it, but it's not out of commission for forever. It can just be a part of who you are. But it's not the whole, it's not your whole how you move. It doesn't take the focus of who you think you are. And I'm aware of like just how I was raised in the particular family systems that I had. Like being a woman meant that you were caretaking for all of the men, that, you know, you were taking off their work boots, and you were preparing them dinner, and you were making sure you brought them drinks, and you were unlocking their door, and you were like always thinking about how you were caretaking for either the party or for the men. And then you would work with the other women to make sure that the party and the men were taken care of. But there was no, and this isn't necessarily everyone else in my experience. I think some of the people that I learned this from, they also required that the man would take care of them, or the party would take care of them in a certain way. But I didn't really get that or receive that or understand that or feel that. It was focused on how do I provide, because I also spent a lot of time in connection with the pain and loneliness that some of the men in this community had in my family system, and how hard it was for them to feel like they had to show up to provide all the time, and maybe to not have the resources. And then that's where their worth came from. So I felt like, oh, well, I must provide that too. I must provide that too. Because clearly it's too big of a burden for the men. So I must do what the women do, and I must see if I can figure out a way to provide in the way that the man is supposed to. But then really not have the resources, just like the modeling in my life, that you overgive, you overfunction. And maybe you don't even know how to appreciate when someone else is providing, because you're so focused on your part that you can't see how people are showing up in their part, because it might not look like how you're used to, so you can't see it. But it doesn't mean it's not there. But there's a willingness to ask, like, what do you feel you're providing? What do you feel your strengths are? What do you have to contribute? This is what I feel like I'm contributing. Do you want that? Are you receiving that? Do you register that or not? I want to come back and like sit in front of the screen. Maybe do the questions for discussion. I don't know if that's if that's gone and I'm completed that, or if there's still something here. So let me just be in this for a second. I feel my body tilting back, and I just want to like rest. Hand on heart, hand on belly, eyes closed. A release, a relax. I want to read to you something. I just shared it in my Instagram stories on my personal page, so I know I can pull it up. But it's this wonderful series of slides by a woman named Nicola Jane Hobbs. Nicola Jane Hobbs. And she writes in her slides, the word relax comes from the Old French relâcher. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, meaning to loosen, to liberate, to set free. I'm going to keep reading, but I just want to take that in, like, to set free. To relax is to set free. What happens when we let ourselves relax? We set ourselves free. Relaxing is an unshackling, an uncaging, an untaming. Relaxing is about releasing the limiting beliefs that imprison us. Relaxing is about freeing ourselves from the trance of busyness. That was definitely in my walk. Relaxing is about loosening our attachment to perfection, to productivity, to other people's approval. Ooh, breathe that, the space between me and the you that I feel like I'm supposed to be approved by. Relaxing is about liberating ourselves from the coping strategies that no longer serve us, that keep us trapped in a cycle of stress, exhaustion, and unworthiness. That there's something there that feels really hot and like performing arts industries to me, that last one, which was relaxing is about liberating ourselves from the coping strategies that no longer serve us, that keep us trapped in a cycle of stress, exhaustion, and unworthiness. So, that's not everybody's experience of working as a performing artist, but that's many of our experiences of at least certain cycles or certain projects of how we show up to engage in the business of our craft. Relaxing is using the freedom we discover in order, let's see that again. Relaxing is using the freedom we discover in our uncaging to free those who are less free, sharing the power we discover in our untaming with those who have less power. So as you untame yourself, you can share that. And as I am moving through this, hopefully there's a degree of transference that you can feel too. There's something in my heart that gets nervous there, in that it feels vulnerable, that space that I was tending to, but I think in a good way. So I'm just going to hold that. It's like the fear of actually being valued and valuable without having to try so hard. There's a fear, nervousness there. Relaxing is setting ourselves free from materialism and individualism. It's building loving communities. I hope that I'm doing that here with you. It's belonging to something. So I'm going to cry. I hope that I'm doing that. And sometimes, you don't know, because there were times in my life where I also thought I was doing that. I hoped I was doing that. And it really turned out to not be that. And in some ways, in hindsight, sure, there are ways that it was. But that trauma piece, that faulty foundation part. And I don't want to build on faulty foundation again. I don't think I can stand the heartbreak. I don't want to. I don't want to withstand that kind of heartbreak again. It's just too much. I have to, I think, speak before I come back into connection with these slides. It's that's why I'm taking such tender, slow time with self-care for performers. That's why I'm honoring myself every time a big coping strategy flares its ugly head, and just being with it and finding out what is the unmet need underneath this. What do we have to be with here?
What are you afraid of? And I just want to ask myself, what are you afraid of, Marissa? Word that comes up is love, to be loved. Like, I'm afraid of that. Everything it could mean, everything it has meant, everything it can come along with. All the different ways people interpret the word, all the different ways it's expressed, all the different ways I haven't ever received it in the ways that I've needed, and the ways in which I've experienced it that weren't what I wanted. And what if I just let go, let it be enough, whatever it is. Let myself be enough, let you be enough, let this be enough. Okay. It's belonging to something larger than ourselves. It's realizing our suffering is shared and our journey is too. So maybe you share in this suffering, maybe this journey you're sharing with me, not just in this embodiment series, but also the larger scope of this spiritual journey. Relaxing is finding freedom from our sense of unworthiness. Relaxing is saying, I matter, we matter, my voice matters, my work matters. Together, we are transforming what matters. And her caption says, one of the things I struggle with the most is finding the words for what my heart wants to say. Sometimes my feelings and ideas and inner knowing seems so elusive and ethereal, I struggle to express them. And then, all of a sudden, usually when I'm walking by the ocean, everything crystallizes and my rational mind translates what my heart has been wanting to say. This is what happened when I was creating The Relaxed Woman. She probably goes into a sales here, but I'm going to read it. And then I looked more deeply at the word relax, and it all made sense. Oh, I think that's her handle, The Relaxed Woman. Well, her name is her handle, and I think that's sort of her tagline. Because relaxing isn't just lying on the sofa doing nothing all day. Relaxing is unshackling, uncaging, untaming. Relaxing is finding freedom from the beliefs and behaviors that harm us, that limit us, that make us blind to our worthiness. Relaxing is saying, I matter, we matter. Together, we are creating a world where everyone matters. Relaxing is setting ourselves and each other free. So, questions for discussion. What were your first thoughts upon watching your story in your slideshow? So I'm curious from you, what are your first thoughts of seeing what we moved through together? I'm going to go through and watch it, and then I might journal about this because I haven't watched it. Has watching your story helped you gain perspective on your life experience? Oh, so has watching my story helped you gain perspective on my life experiences, or even on your own, for any sort of shared humanity that's a part of it? What life lessons have you learned from this experience? I'm looking forward to writing through that. I'm going to definitely take that into my heart. And I feel in many ways the life lessons are held exactly in that quote that I just read. I did kind of ride the quote too. energetically. Thank you for joining me here today. Thank you for holding me in your witness in this very vulnerable, cathartic, authentic share. I desire to feel safe with you. I desire to feel a sense of belonging and community and connection and a willingness to be relational and to care for ourselves and each other. This is what I hope that I'm building here. This is what I hope to inspire for you, however much you do or don't engage with me directly or quietly in your relationship to these videos or this one video, even if you don't watch anymore. But my hope is that I will find those of you who do want to connect more consistently, cycle together to build into a kind of community where we can utilize intimacy building practices with ourselves and one another that are directly intentional and have a sense of aim at working through our hardships to the other side, to really come into a container of having survived. And being on the other side of so much of what might still feel like you're in the trenches of. How do we create rituals and practices and guiding rods to lead us through the dark, even as we are in it and able to find the light at the depth of our basin, to still know there is a way that we can relax as we've lived through it. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you.